بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلوات الله وسلامه على نبيه الكريم عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. My brothers and my sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you're all doing well, inshaAllah ta'ala. Today we're supposed to do our etiquettes class, but I figured we would do something a little bit different. And I probably should have put up a poster about it and might have gotten a little more views, but alhamdulillah. I figured that we would just keep it open to talk, to have a discussion, questions, answer some questions, but more of a discussion. I figured that some people in the community might want to express themselves based on what has happened in London in the last few days, and also a lot of people have been asking so many questions, like questions about being worried. When does it become permissible to not publicly show your deen, or when is it permissible to this was a discussion that came up amongst a few people. When would it become permissible for sisters not to wear hijab, based on some examples from around the world in the last few years that have come up. We also see some parents probably struggling with trying to figure out how to tell their children what has happened in London, or to just have a discussion about it with their children. So these are some of the things that have come up, and I figured that we would, keep the discussion today open. I thought if anyone wants to share their screen and maybe, just for 1 minute, so each person could just share for a minute, inshallah ta'ala, to say something about how they feel or how they've dealt with it, or to, just share something, get it off your mind. A lot of people have been trying to get things off their mind, off their hearts, we could say, as in express themselves, or a lot of anxiety that people have been feeling. So, wa alaikum assalam to all of you that are giving salam. So I figured that that would be something that we could do. And also, actually just asked my wife if she wants to come on, and maybe we could have a discussion about telling children, and just about London and the Muslim community and having fear. In the khutbah today, for those of you that attended, we were talking about fear. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-khabir, and He knows everything that's happened, and He knows everything that is happening, and He knows why it's happening as well. And you and I might feel as though this is strange. Why is it happening? We don't understand it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows why it's happening. So if anyone wants to, jump in and say something or express themselves in some way, feel free. Just send me a request, share screen. That is more specifically for the Instagram viewership, and those that are on YouTube and Facebook. Because I'm using a platform streaming to multiple places, we won't be able to hear. So that's that. But you could type things in. So if you want to type anything in and ask any questions, feel free to do that on YouTube and Facebook, inshallah. And then my wife's going to join right now, if we could figure out how to fit the two of us in the screen. Not because I put on a lot of weight, but because I'm sitting in a little corner in our bedroom. You have to come closer. You don't be scared of me. I'm married to you. You go you go behind me, and that way you'll fit in the screen. There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So she's scared of me. Oh wait, why aren't you on that screen? Hold on. So I usually have the cameras tilted so it doesn't show the entire bedroom. There.
You can see.
All right. So this is my wife. You have no idea if it actually is her because you can't see her. I hope it's her. Otherwise, my wife, whoever she is, will be really upset.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.
Um, so what I was telling the people is that maybe we can just have a discussion about a few things that have gone on. And someone asked a question about the difference between zakat and sadaqah, or sadaqah and donation. But we're not going to get into that today, inshallah. Basically, sadaqah is sadaqah, and in English we call it a donation. Does that make sense? Good. I think you might be wondering what the difference is between zakat and sadaqah, but we'll leave that for Sunday's class because that's fiqh related. Okay. Why are you sitting like that?
It's more comfortable.
You're on a live stream. Sit properly. So here's a question. Um, my wife and I had a conversation with the children, and I want to know my wife's thoughts on how that conversation went, and if she feels that we should have told them more than we did, because I think we told them more than we need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, something in your eye. Yeah, so
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
no,
So,
no lectures, casual.
no, you know what? I think the conversation that you're going to have with your children is going to be based off the relationship that you already have with your children. Um, you yourself already know as a parent, like what your kids can handle, what they can't handle. You know what they've been exposed to already, what they are capable of comprehending. So everybody has already an understanding of what they can share or not. So for us, we know that our kids had already experienced the Quebec mosque shooting, and because of the work that Doug does, um, and also I also teach, and so we already are talking about it ourselves, and our children are homeschooled. So whatever conversations happen, it's very difficult to have private conversations and to hide anything from them. They're already exposed to a lot of things. So I think for us, our conversation with the kids was perhaps not like most people. So I think that they have already been exposed to what happened in Quebec City. They've already been exposed to what happened in New Zealand. We just finished recently talking about what's happening in Palestine, and studying the history of what's happening over there. And we've also been talking to them about what's happening in the indigenous communities as well. That's something that we've been talking about consistently. So it was just another thing, another event to talk about that we've already been framing their perspective about these types of issues. So it was just another example to give that this is something that can happen. All the things that we've been talking about and all the concepts that we've been talking about. You see, this event happened. This demonstrates some of those concepts, and so we present that way, I think.
So one of the things I was telling my wife is I found that a lot of people were having a hard time having discussion with their children, and there were like a few people even reached out to me and asked, should they tell their children, and if so, what should they tell their children? And my response mentally in my mind was, I feel sometimes that we baby our children too much just because and it's not something that's intentionally done, it's just the society that we live in. Like, alhamdulillah, people have nice homes, and even if they live in an apartment, the apartment has electricity and it has water and it has a parking spot for their car and it has an elevator to go up and down instead of walking on the stairs, uh, and so many luxuries. And if you look at children of other countries or in other regions of the world, that doesn't mean that people aren't suffering here, but the suffering and the pain of like the children in Palestine who have been seeing their parents and their siblings and their relatives and their neighbors, every person that they could possibly even think of, sometimes being killed in front of them, and it's another day for them, right? So
Yeah.
it's difficult for children to see it and experience it, but I think we need to have these, like, not that I think we need to let our children know what's happening in the world, and they should know what's happening. Yes, they are children, but I don't think that it is harmful for them to know what's happening in the world. When you look at Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they experienced hardship and difficulty. Yes, children are supposed to be children, but children in Canada, I would say, are children till they're like 30 years old. Their parents pamper them, baby them, okay, they might know about things that are happening in the world from the age of 15 and up, but prior to that, it's like,
Well,
I
I
don't know.
think, I mean, I think from a from societal perspective, and I know there's even been research done on this. I was actually just reading a book, and I'm trying to remember the title of it, but talking about like the resiliency of human beings now, like the resiliency of youth and children, how it's gone down so much compared to like just 20, 30 years ago. How like our capacity for dealing and dealing with failure and dealing with challenges has gone down so much that something so small can phase a teenager, or can phase like a 10-year-old and cause them to like to just lose it or become so depressed, or you know need to take medication because they can't cope with it. The capacity of the youth in general has definitely diminished in terms of their capability within North America. I would say that every like every place has its own little bubble of what they think is this is what existence is like, and this is what we're experiencing, what we have in our life, and then to sort of to see what's outside that bubble is very very challenging. And especially if you just stay within that bubble and you keep yourself in that bubble, and then you never are exposed to or talk about or frame anything outside of it. So in North America, definitely I would agree that we are in somewhat of a like some kind of little bubble here where we think that we're not exposed to as much hardship, so to speak. Like
That's always been a frustration that I had though.
like
Like,
literal hardship, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like we do have hardship, we have depression, we have drugs, we have the problem of a lot of mental health issues and those kind of things. But like real life problems, like the scarcity of water, and the inability to like wash your clothes when you want to wash them, and those kind
sense
of
of
things.
entitlement. Everyone feels entitled. Children feel entitled. They're 18 years old and and that is an issue that I find a lot of people have because they try so hard to give their children what they didn't have. So, for example, you grew up in a village far, far away and you didn't have electricity 24 hours a day, you didn't have air conditioning, you didn't have a car, you didn't have so many things. So, you came to Canada, or parents came to Canada and they tried really hard to give to their children what they didn't have themselves. But the problem with that is that we've given so much to our children. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're so overworked and stressed that sometimes when our children get on our nerves, we just give them more stuff so that it just keeps them quiet. Like the concept of TV. Put your children in front of the television. That's what we were, growing up. That was the thing. Put your children in front of the television and they won't bother you, right? They'll stay quiet. You can go and do what you need to do. When they no longer like that, you give them something else.
We're giving them a lot from a material standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what a lot of the studies have shown. And I think the book that I was reading was talking about this concept, is that we've given our children a lot of material things, but we haven't given them a lot of the material aspects of like what they need for their characters to nourish their characters. The resiliency, patience, honor, dignity, those kind of characteristics. We haven't given them enough of that, and that is what's causing them to have a really hard time when they witness events like this. They don't know how to handle it, how to frame it, how to view it, so it becomes something so shocking and so it flips it over, and something so dramatic needs to be done in order for them to be able to know how to handle it. um,
So I want to hear from some people. If anyone wants to share their screen or just type in anything. I see a question here. I'm going to see if it's an actual question. What age should they be for us to tell them what's happening in the world? My son is 6. Okay. So what age should they be? Well, my opinion, it depends on what we're telling them, right? Like it depends on what you were talking about. So if we just won't keep it too broad, let's stay focused. If we're talking about, let's say, Palestine or Syria or Burma or even East Turkestan, for those of you who don't know, China, west side Muslims, Uyghur, right? Um, or even what's happened in London, right? At what age do you start telling them? I think they can know from a very, very young age, but you tell them in a way that relates to maybe some of the stories of the Sahaba or some of the stories of the prophets, right? When you think of it, like that question, a 6 year old, does the 6 year old know stories of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Does the 6 year old know stories about Prophet?
It's not even so much about what, like,
Totally
other stories.
stole the show.
It's not so much about that. It's just about you yourself as a parent kind of know what your child has been exposed to already, like I mentioned before, and you know what your child's mental capacity is. So, to be honest, I don't really think that there is a specific age that you can say, okay, this is the cutoff
Yeah,
age, or by 6 or by 7. Like, a simple way would be just to gauge like what your child has been exposed to. What kind of cartoons have you let your kids watch, and what are the themes in those cartoons? What are the storylines, or what are the some of the character dilemmas that have come across in Paw Patrol, or any other
what's that?
it's a cartoon that kids watch. Any other cartoon that has a lot of very adult themes. Most cartoons like that are for children, most programs that are run for children have very adult themes in them already. Character dilemma, and bullying, and feeling the need to prove oneself, and all very adult themes in them. So if you look at what your child who's a 6 year old, what they already been exposed to in terms of what they've watched and consumed in terms of media, that will give you a good sense of, okay, they've been exposed to this, they've seen this, I can frame the discussion that I want to have with them based off of that. You can start it off by, like, you remember in Paw Patrol when the little puppy wanted to take this his thing, and then his friend was hiding it, and then he had to search in this long journey, and he had to go find it. Well, remember that? Well, sometimes in life that happens for real, and then you can frame it like that, and then the child has already been exposed to that concept, but now they can apply it in a real world way. And that's actually very healthy, because if you only show it to them in the framework of cartoons, and it's just fun and it's just play, and this isn't real, this is not real life, this is just TV, this is just cartoons, you created this disconnect of your child between what they're consuming and everything, and when they get out into the real world and see it for what it is, you've done your child a disservice. So you can see right away, like what your child has been exposed to, what they've seen, and then kind of gauge it from there. Look at it from there.
I think there's another issue there as well that I usually talk about. Um, Desensitizing. Like some people will allow their children to play video games of shooting and killing. They will allow their children to watch movies that, of course, they tell their children it's not true, it's not real, right? It's fake blood, it's fake everything. When you see it happening in a movie, whether you're a child or you're an adult, you're not telling yourself it's fake, it's fake. Because when you see something that's emotional in the movie, it's like you feel it, right? When something is going, like throughout the movie, you start to like you're drawn into it. Okay, especially the way that they do the whole
Yeah, it's an
cinematography and
emotional thing
everything.
versus emotional.
So now what happens is we no longer have so much respect for the human being because it's so normal to see killing in movies and fighting and video games and all that, that when youth see it in real life or they hear about it in real life, it's like, okay, and that's the end of it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, but there's thousands of people and children being killed in other countries around the world. Oh, okay. It's like, what's the problem? Because they get points and higher on the video games when they carry out certain acts in a similar way as well. And that is taking away from the respect that a human should have for another human.
Yeah, I think at 6 years old, they're not playing those kind of games, though.
Well, we can ask.
I think I was just thinking of, like, if you just look at like a movie like Cinderella, or what was it, the one with Let It Go, Frozen, right? I mean, most parents let their kids watch Frozen from a really young age, and there are so many themes in the movie that are very serious, right? There's a lot of serious themes, power, and the fight good and evil, and there's a lot of very dramatic, very violent scenes, and um, because it's masked in this, cartoonish and everything, and it looks pretty, and there's songs, and it has a happy ending, but the themes that are in it and what the kids are witnessing are still adult themed, very mature things. So if it's okay to expose them to that in that way, you can certainly expose them to the reality of life.
Of life.
That life is
Yeah.
also messy. And what would you do if this happened to you? What would you do if, someone came and told you you could not be together with your sister and you had to go far away, and then your sister went far away and you didn't know where she was and you have to go find her? Yes, it's just a story in a cartoon, but what if that happened to you in real life and you lost your sister and you had to go and find her? You do as a real human person and this being a real possibility, right? So we've already exposed them to a lot of things anyways, even at a young age, outside of video games.
We have. But I think parents just don't have those conversations with their children. And the other thing
It's
is
like entertainment, just pass the time kind of thing,
exactly.
and not really talk about it.
Yeah. Like children know and children see and they hear things. Like if a lot of parents out there are saying, I haven't told my children yet, they've probably heard you talking to a friend about what happened in London the other day, anyways, right? Um, Now it's a matter of talking to them about their feelings, right? So sadly, I find a lot of parents are just basically disconnected with what's going on in their children's life, and that's mainly because of school, right? What are you doing? Mainly because of school. But now that they're not going to school, a lot of parents are at home with their children and are like, okay, now we gotta, spend time with them and do things with them and stuff like that. But there's always been a disconnect in the life of the parent, especially now more so than ever, I find, because of how busy parents are, especially whether they're working now or not. Once upon a time, it was the working parent that was complaining they're too busy to be with the children or to do things with the children. When they come home, they're tired. But because of social media, it doesn't matter if you're working or you're staying at home, you're always busy with something. And that busyness harms our children. We know that. But it also allows them to develop skills to pick things up without their parents telling them. Right? And so they know a lot about the world when their parents never even told them about it because they're busy exploring and figuring it out on their own, especially if they have access to social
Yeah.
media and the internet.
With one of the concepts that I was reading about recently was talking about this, that if, like, in a child's life, the way that they view the world, if they don't if they don't get something from somewhere, then it creates a vacuum in their life and it creates a hole, and someone or something will inevitably come and fill it up. So they will hear about current events or they'll witness certain adult themes in whatever they're being exposed to, and because you as a parent don't fill up the gap for them and don't fill up that vacuum space for them, they will either create a reality for themselves, create an idea about what they think it is for themselves, or someone guaranteed will come and decide or tell them, create that for them. Like someone will say, this is what that means, and this is what your viewpoint should be. So whatever space you're not filling as a parent, someone will come and fill it for you. And as a parent, you want to make sure that you're the one in control of that, and you're the one who's that's essentially the job of a parent.
So here,
is to,
let's change it up a little bit. Let's talk about fear. Let's talk about how some people are scared now to be a Muslim. And I want to hear from all of you. Are any of you scared to be a Muslim and walk? There's a question.
It was up there just as
It was more a statement, not a question. It was a sister. I forgot her name now. She was saying, Alia Ziza. She was saying, my daughter is 9 and is aware of everything that is happening. I try to instill trust in Allah and the power of dua. And just before that, someone was saying, yes, the process of giving and protecting our kids, they become dependent on us and don't comprehend the hardship of the real world and how to cope and how to deal with these things mentally. So what I was fear. There's a lot of people out there. Oh man, that's far. A lot of people out there that now are feeling scared to be Muslim, or I shouldn't say scared to be Muslim, scared to outwardly portray their Islam. So a few sisters, concerned about wearing hijab. And I can also say that some, people will be like, hey, you know what? Scared to maybe even use my name if their name is something different than the norm in the society they live in. One brother told me, he says, I'm never going to be wearing a thobe to go for Jummah ever again. He says he usually wears a thobe only on Jummah, and he's not going to be wearing a thobe to go for Jummah because he when he's wearing a thobe.
You know what? When you were mentioning before about how some people didn't tell their children, I actually hesitated to tell the girls right away too. And even though they are exposed to a lot of already, I was a little bit apprehensive and nervous because the girls go outside a lot and they both wear hijab and they're both very little. And I was a little bit nervous about them, just how they would feel when they go outside and play in the park. That I didn't even want that to go in their mind, that like that second thought where it's like, oh, I have my hijab on, and everybody's gonna stare at me, and I just felt like, and what if something bad happens, and I didn't even want to like have them to have that second thought kind of thing. So I was nervous about telling them this incident in particular because it was like, something that they do every day. They go outside every day and they play every day. Cars drive by every day, and it's like I didn't want them to think, to have that extra thought in their mind now. So that I was nervous about that, that they would have some kind of negative association with hijab and being so visibly Muslim. So I think it is a real fear. It's a real fear.
It's a fear, but when you think back as well, what happened in Quebec City, um, or what happened in the mosques in New Zealand, does that mean now we should not go to the mosque? Because that was a legitimate concern and fear that people had, and that's why many masajid here in Canada as well, even though New Zealand was on the other side of the world, Quebec City is just 800 kilometers away. People were scared to go to the masjid. Police presence at the mosque was heightened. Like I'd be in my office, and every 2 or 3 hours, a police car would come in, do rounds around the parking lot, sit there, make sure everything's fine, and then go. Jum'ah, we would have extra security. We'd have the doors locked while we're praying. Regular prayers, the doors would be locked. No one could come in except if there was, someone monitoring the door that would allow them through. Uh, but now it's like, okay, even to just be a Muslim and walk down the street. And this is where I think there's always going to be one or two or three people around us somewhere in life that are going to express their hatred towards Islam or hatred of us to ourselves. Uh, but does that mean I should stop doing what I'm doing? Like we grew up in Quebec, we always would have issues. I've been told to go back to my country. Think of how many times, so many times, right? Go back to my country. I am in my country. Does that make me feel angry? Yes, sometimes I would get angry. Now I learn how to deal with it, but as a Muslim, when someone tells me something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu idha khatabahum al-jalu salama. Sorry. إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا no.
Which verse are you thinking of?
Now I'm combining verses.
Which verse are you thinking of? The one where people who say stuff to you, what you reply with?
Yeah.
So didn't you just say that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, believers, when someone is, some ignorant person yells out at you, says something to you, respond to them in a nice way. Respond to them in a nice, peaceful manner, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not telling us to change ourselves. He's telling us to stand strong, be firm, and to respond in a way that you may not feel like you want to respond. You might want to say something bad back to them. But Allah is telling you, control yourself, say something nice to them, because you never know what you might say might actually be beneficial to that person. Like, don't lower yourself to their standard.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I had a nice talk with our non-Muslim neighbors the other night. And that's what I was explaining to them, because I was talking to them about the fact that I hadn't told the girls about it yet, because they were expressing their concern over it, and they were saying, we love your girls, and we feel so upset that, we're worried about them and things like that. And they were just offering their, solidarity with us. And I was explaining to them my reasons for not the girls, and don't remember what I was gonna say.
You were telling the neighbors
Yeah, I don't remember what the
something.
point of bringing it up was. I had one of your famous mind blanks. I'm gonna remember in 5 seconds when you're in the middle of talking. Oh man,
I'll be
subhanAllah.
sure to send you this recording so you can
Lovely.
watch how
Oh, it's okay. I just don't remember now why I mentioned
something
it.
you were talking to the
Yeah.
neighbors yesterday about it and about being kind and being nice. That's what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Something about that.
just
I'll
totally
remember it
forgot.
after. I'll remember it later.
Totally forgot.
I'll remember it after.
Don't live in the fear of death. We will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it is time, not early later. Very true, right? Um, None of us knows when we're going to pass away. And I say this to people when I go to the hospital sometimes and I visit someone who's been told by the doctors you have a certain amount of time left to live. And when I'm speaking to them and talking to them, they're like, my life and this and that. And they're talking about the thing they want to do and they need to finish up and how they're going to spend the little part of their life because a doctor told them they have a few months or a few years left to live. And I always they might outlive me
Hmm.
because la qaddar Allah, any of us could walk outside our door, and I honestly didn't premeditate saying this. I always would say you could walk out your door and be hit by a car, and not because of someone who's intentionally targeting you. It's just an accident. Something could happen like that. So, as believers in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, we have to trust, just like we say, trust that your rizq is from Allah, your provision, what comes to you is from Allah. So why worry about it?
I remember what I was gonna say.
There we go.
I was telling the neighbors that in our own Islamic tradition, we already have discussions about persecution and going through challenges and stuff of the stories from Sirah, right? When you learn about the Sirah and you learn about the first 13 years of prophethood in Mecca, it's essentially like what many people in the world are experiencing now: persecution for believing believing in Allah, mockery, being forced to disbelieve, having to hide your belief. All those same things happen in the first 13 years of prophethood, and so I mean, it's not like it's something new and something different. I think what's different now is that with the advent of social media, um, it's in your face all the time. And I think that's why I've noticed that a lot of shuyukh and a lot of scholars have been saying, get off of social media. Like, yes, you want to have your posts and for social activism and everything, but at the end of the day, shut it off and do something else. Because I think like the way that the world is now, you never get a chance to just breathe. It just festers and festers and festers. You're constantly faced with it, faced with it, faced with it, faced with it. Oh, this you see this negative post and this negative tweet and this thing and this conversation, and you just never get to breathe.
There's no silence.
Yeah, you never get to breathe.
Always noise in the brain.
There's never like a moment of calm anymore. Whereas when we were growing up, we had the same stuff we have now. We would be afraid to pray in public. We would go to La Ronde, like the amusement park, and then next to the roller coaster, dad would call the adhan, that super loud voice, and everyone would stare, and we'd all be like hiding behind the trees and like, trying to. Oh my God, this guy with like dark kurta and a big white beard, and he's like saying Allah Akbar with the music in the background and everything, and we'd be so embarrassed, and then people would be staring at us and making fun of us and everything. So we had that fear growing up, and we had people who say things, and there was racism, and there was Islamophobia back then too. But now it's the same thing exists, but it's heightened and it's like exaggerated, and it's just constant aggravation. And there's no, like you said, there's no calmness, there's no stoppage of it, because people are constantly, it's just a constant barrage now because of social media and because everybody has this to their hand. And even when they get off of that and they go on the computer or they go on TV, it's again there. So there's no escape for it anymore. And that's what's different from the time that we grew up as teenagers to the time that people are growing up in now. You know?
So interesting though, because when you think of So once upon a time when technology was become a little bit more advanced and we started getting smartphone and ease of access to the internet. Huh?
We can stop with the finger thing.
I like doing this, right? Because it's the things that we talk about. Uh, when it comes to learning the deen and spending time trying to memorize hadith, memorize Quran, focus, you need to focus, focus, focus. I find it's difficult for children and adults, everyone, myself included now, to focusing down writing, preparing my Jummah khutbah. I literally need to not only put my phone on mute, but turn it upside down so I don't even see the screen light up when a message comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I focus. I will completely disconnect, and we need to try to do that more as human beings. Like when you see people at Fajr time, you know, they come into the masjid, they're standing there sometimes, they will not pray their sunnah, right? Or tahiyatul masjid, because maybe they prayed their sunnah at home. And it's not only Fajr, any time of the day or night. Like, we should not be a people that wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is, instead of saying, Alhamdulillah, alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhi nushur, be people that start to look at our messages. Avoid that, honestly, is to disconnect the messaging ability from the night before. So
Well,
that when
yeah,
you
or
wake
even
up, the
get rid of your
messages are
phone.
not
Yeah.
there.
Or just put your phone in
Just
the other room.
turn the internet off. Like
Mm-hmm.
people will say, but I use it for my alarm. Okay, fine. Turn the internet off, right? And then the reason why I'm saying this, and I know I gotta leave soon for
Mm-hmm.
Maghrib because I have to lead Maghrib, but the reason why I'm saying it is our minds are so busy with things that take us away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't spend enough time in ibadah. We don't spend enough time since Ramadan. How much Quran have we read? You know, since Ramadan have we made? Since Ramadan, how many extra 2 rak'ah have we prayed at night? Since Ramadan, have we even missed a fard prayer? If we have, then like what are we doing?
I think when you, in general, when you look at whatever's happening, I don't think situations and circumstances and certain themes like racism and hatred and phobia of any kind that is new. I think that
No.
that is different now than it was any other time. I think what's changed is the people.
Well, that's what, yeah.
The
The
people are
people and
less
also
resilient.
the way we react to it, right?
Yeah, because we're less resilient. We're less resilient.
So
We're
I
less
gave this
patient.
example in my khutbah today, and I was saying that this has been around since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar ibn al-Khattab embraced Islam and gathered the Muslims, and they marched towards the Kaaba, and they stood around the Kaaba and prayed in congregation for the very first time. And it took Umar ibn al-Khattab to become a Muslim for them to finally feel we're going to be safe while we're praying and no one's going to jump on our backs. No one's going to attack us. So that was happening during the time of the Prophet ﷺ already.
Yeah, I think
It's not
just
new. It's not new. It's not new. So the problem is,
it's the condition of the people,
yes,
the caliber of the people, the condition of the heart, the caliber of the level of iman one has. This is what is changing, and this is what's different from all of us up until now.
so someone's saying, how do you focus on prayer? I really struggle with that. Another person is saying, so if we have done Fajr Sunnah, we can't do any nawafil before the Fard. Sorry, a fiqh question. So, um, let me just quickly answer these. Focus on your salah. How do you focus on salah? Focus. Try to focus. Allahu Akbar. I don't care about my phone. I don't care about the world. I don't care about this. Focus. And try to listen to yourself reciting. This is a reason why some of the prayers are supposed to be loud, but the silent prayers you recite in a way that you can actually hear yourself, so you can listen to yourself. Not like, or someone was asking me the other day, when I pray, the brother was saying that he recites in his heart only, right? No, it's supposed to be in your tongue. And if we have done Fajr Sunnah, we can't do any Nawafil before the Fard. Sorry, yes, you can. You can do extra Sunnah Nafil prayers after the Sunnah of Fajr for the Fard congregation to be led.
I think another thing that would help with concentration in prayer too is like like with any other thing that you want to do in life, is that you have like a procedure leading up to it, right? So you have,
Preparation,
yeah, your preparation leading
conditions
up to
leading up
it.
to it.
Create ideal conditions for yourself. Do it in a quiet place. Like have a method of going into it. It's the same kind of thing that you would do for like relaxing at bedtime, right? You have a bedtime routine. You go, you brush your teeth, and then you do this, and that sort of helps you get to sleep. So with prayer, if you want to get more out of it too, you do the same type of thing. And I think even more so, the effort needs to be made for prayer because it's something that's very ritualistic and it happens very often. It's 5 times a day. So it runs the risk of being something very just,
Monotonous
yeah, it's
and
subconsciously you're praying almost.
routine.
Yes, it's
Something
just so
routine.
routine.
Yeah.
So I think if you like maybe choose different verses that you want, just think about the meaning of what you're saying, say it, think about the meaning, and then say the next thing. I think even slowing down the movements too helps.
You know what really helps is practice the Quran that you're weak in while you're praying your prayers.
Yes, I always tell my students this. I tell my
Right?
Quran students,
So
revise your surahs in salah.
whatever surah you're memorizing, whatever pages of the Quran you are revising, if you already memorized, read those in your salah, and you'll see how much more you're concentrating and focusing on your prayer. You're going to be there, and you're not going to pay attention to anything else, right? Unless you're like super hafiz who has not made a mistake in your recitation of the last 20 years, and those are rare people to find.
I think related to what you were talking about today about Al Khabir, and you were saying that how Allah is Al Khabir because He doesn't just know about something, but He knows the reasons why.
Why?
And I think for everything in our life, we can demonstrate that same quality, that attribute that Allah has of being aware, is by like bringing awareness to the actions that we're doing. Like when you think about when you're standing up in salah, why am I standing here? What am I doing? Why is this? And then when you bend down and you're making ruku', why am I doing this movement? Why this movement in particular? And then when you get back up again and we go down to the ground and you put, why am I doing this? If you try to answer the why of every movement, everything, even the finger raising, why am I doing this? And you start to ask yourself that question, that will help draw your heart towards focusing on all of the actions, because you're now thinking about the why, not just do I need to say and what do I need to do next and what do I need to do next. You've now changed your focus onto why am I doing this? And it becomes a richer experience.
It's like someone who's going through a difficulty in their life. Something dramatic has just happened. A loved one was told, or you found out that someone close to you was hospitalized for some reason. Something happened, an accident or something. All of a sudden, your salah is totally different because you're like, I need the help of Allah. Your dua is totally different. I need the help of Allah, right? Why? That's exactly it. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this purpose. So for every salah, maybe before your salah starts, think to yourself, why do I need dhuhr today? What happened from Fajr till now? At Asr today, what happened from dhuhr until now? And now it's just, Maghrib is in 16 minutes. Why do I need Maghrib? What did I do wrong earlier today? What do I need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help for? What has just happened? What have I listened to and learned today throughout the session that I need the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And maybe that'll help.
And also it's the time when dua is accepted, so
Yes.
let's get off the live now, inshallah.
So, yes, you can get off the live dua. I will get off the live so I can make it to the masjid in order to lead the salah. And I'll make dua for you while I'm driving, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan for attending. Jazakumullahu khairan to my wife. I'm not paying you for this, don't worry. Sorry. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from every single one of us, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep all of you families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen you in iman and make all of us proud to be Muslims, and proud to have Islam and not arrogant because of being a Muslim. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.